What's up, y'all? TBrown31 here with JaboctheGreat. Once again, we are back with another episode of The Last Word. Today, we got picks for the semifinals of the college football playoffs coming up on Monday, and then two games from the NFL this weekend. So let's go ahead and start with Alabama and Michigan. That one's probably, I'd say, the most polarizing pick. So we're actually going to split on this one. I'm going to go with Alabama. He's going to go with Michigan. I, you know, this is obviously probably controversial considering Alabama is, they got the one loss. Of course, Texas beat them. So, in essence, they're the only team with a real blemish on their record here in the playoffs. They got in over Florida State. That we spent enough time talking about that. But, now that the game's actually coming up, looking at it, my thing is this: if Alabama plays the absolute best that they can, like they did against Georgia, Jalen Murrow has the type of games that he had later in the season and not early in the season. I think it's completely possible that Alabama wins. My thing, I don't know. Like we were talking about this just now. Like it's hard to pick against Alabama, but Michigan hasn't really given us much reason to really doubt them this season. I mean, they're undefeated. They've beaten every team that was put in front of them. They beat the mess out of Iowa again in another Big Ten championship. Like that wasn't really surprising. Like we didn't even cover it when we did our conference championship video. So the pick really probably should be Michigan here. I just have a feeling. Like forget the analysis. I just got a feeling that Alabama's going to be able to pull this one out because I think right now Alabama might win it all. They're probably the most motivated, I would say, because
Yeah.
nobody's really talking about the Michigan cheating thing anymore. That's kind of died down. Obviously because it's been a while since the season ended, but I think the Alabama getting in over Florida State probably overtook that. So Alabama's probably the most motivated team, I would say, and they did just beat Georgia, so that is part of it. That's probably one of the bigger reasons why they got in. So that's a reason I feel like it's kind of underrated when we talk about it. Is like they did beat the team that hadn't lost a game in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would say this one goes 30. I'll say 30-27 Alabama, but that's a
Yeah.
very not insanely confident pick. I'm just going with the upset. Simple as that, really.
Hey, look, man. One thing I like to do on the show is pick based on feeling. So I can't fault you on this one. There's a lot of feeling. Sometimes when you look at a team, it doesn't matter what the stats say. Sometimes you just feel it that something's going to change. And I think one thing we got to think about too, in Alabama's favor here. I'm obviously, as you said, I'm going to go with Michigan. But I mean, their last win, we can look at. They got some closer wins. So does Michigan. But the 27-24 win against Georgia is massive when you consider that sure they only put up 27 for college standards, but they put up 27 against a Georgia defense that has been, that's rare to even get that much against them. They also beat Georgia the first time for Georgia's first loss in like 2 years. Held Georgia down as well, so just 24. So overall, I mean, close game score at the end, of course, but it's just a really dominant performance. Michigan, though, for me, there's not any. I can look at Alabama and I can say if Michigan can force Jalen Monroe to be like he was in the early part of the season, they get it done.
Right.
And it's hard for me to find. I mean, there's holes in Michigan's game. They've had some close ones. They narrowly escaped Ohio State. And then, their last game of the season, they had a tough one against Maryland that they would win pretty well. That Penn State game was a little gritty. That's just some of their most recent games. But there's just there's like less clear things to say like, well, if they can do this, then they can get the win. Now, on the flip side of that, I don't think it's just simple for a coach to say, well, if we make Jalen Monroe play bad like he did in the early part of the season, we win the game. Because then you have to make him play bad. I think that's the harder part to force there. I would agree actually with you in your score pick. I think 30-27 seems like a perfect final for this score. I'm just going to flip it on its head and say I think the number one Wolverines will advance forward. This is going to be a fun one. This probably, I know we had some controversy. I voiced my defense for Florida State. I wanted Florida State to get in here and get whooped by Michigan because they earned that right to come get whooped by Michigan. But
Okay.
but in the end, though, I mean, this is probably one of the more fun matchups we could have gotten. to get Alabama in as a 4 seed, and they get to face Michigan in the first round. I think that's really fun. I think this is going to be good New Year's Day football, regardless of the unfortunate circumstances that might have led Alabama to get here. We're going to have a good game. I think 30-27 Michigan is the way I'm going to swing it. Yeah, we should have a really great first round, including the Texas and Washington game. We're going to be less conflicted over here. Both of us are going to be picking Washington in this one. The Huskies have just been, aside from Michigan, the most dominant team this year, and that includes some narrow victories over Oregon. But Oregon was also quite literally one of the most dominant offenses we saw this season. They just couldn't quite hold up against Washington in those two games. Texas has been fun. It has been really fun to have Texas back. If you've been watching this show for any amount of time, Terrence and I have been waiting for Texas to be back. They're here. They're in the playoffs, and I think they're going to give us a good game. But uh, it's just going to be really hard to say that like Dylan Johnson, Romeo Dunze, and Michael Penix Jr. are going to be outgunned. They are, I think, just the more high flying offense. They're Romeo Dunze, especially when he gets going. It's really hard to stop. Dylan Johnson has had some games here where it's like this dude is the best player on the field, and Michael Penix was a Heisman candidate. So I just think Washington is a more composed team. Now, do I think it's going to be like Washington 40 to Texas 20? No. I think the Oregon games are pretty representative. Texas is a good offense. They're also a pretty good defense. I think you could see a 34-31, a 22-20. That's a weird one. That was from that Oregon State game. I just ripped that score. But I think you could see things like that occur in this game. I just think that I trust Michael Penix and the Washington offense a little more than the Texas team, which is painful because I was, as I said, we've been pushing for Texas to be back, but I've also been pushing the Washington agenda all season, and they come to a head here. And I'm going to say that I think Washington will hold off. According to ESPN Analytics, where I pass it though, they do have Texas slated by like 68% to 31, which is kind of crazy. I don't know. I can see it being slated for Texas. These are both good teams, but that much is kind of wild to me, in my personal opinion. But anyway, I think that at the end of the day, Penix and Odunze are a really hard duo to stop. And when they do get stopped a little bit, Dylan Johnson comes in and picks up the slack. If it comes down to a shootout, Washington has proved that they're the more poised team. They're going to win those shootouts. I'm going to take Washington. We'll say 34-31.
I was about to just make a point about competition, and I remember, I literally just said Texas just beat, Alabama. Obviously, that was week 2, but that's part
Yeah.
of why they got. I mean, that is a huge reason why they got in. Despite having that one loss, and of course, Alabama gets in. The team that beat them has to get in right ahead of them too. So I mean, that fair play there. And especially since the last time we saw Texas, the Oklahoma State game, like Texas didn't even have to do anything to beat the mess out of them. Like it was literally first quarter 21-7. And from there, it was it. Like Oklahoma State, they were a good team this season, but like they were just clearly not even close to Texas level. And it took a crazy performance from Dylan Gabriel and a final touchdown in the last 30 seconds of the game for Oklahoma to beat them. So with that being said, I just can't keep doubting Washington anymore. Like the 2 games that they had against Oregon, we both picked Oregon in those. Is like I can't, in good caution, say, you know what, Washington isn't going to lose again. I was leaning towards Texas probably a little bit more before, but like just giving it more thought, I think. And again, this might be funny because they just dropped 50 on Oklahoma State, but I think Oklahoma State is not comparable to Oregon, right? So in that sense, and again, since Texas, beating Bama, that was so early in the season, like I feel like at their absolute best, Washington's still a better team there. Just not even counting the record there. I think just Washington's just a better team. 2 quarterbacks that can definitely be playmakers, put up some points for sure. But you also got running, like you said, from Dylan Johnson. I mean, he's really good at the running back position. So I would say, we both agree here. I would say this one's going to be higher scoring than the Alabama game for sure. In my opinion, I think it probably goes 38-35, something like that. I think that might be even more likely because, I mean, these are, again, really 2 really good offenses. So I think this game will be closer to, what we saw with the Washington Oregon games, with Washington slightly edging out Texas in the end. But yeah, this is going to be exciting come Monday. And again, these games are true toss ups. I really don't know who the heck's going to win this one, but either way, we'll be talking about it when it happens. So moving to the NFL, we got, like I said, two games. We're gonna go ahead and start with Detroit and Dallas. We're both picking the Cowboys. I'm picking them reluctantly. Kind of like what I just said, with Washington. I don't really want to pick against the Lions again. Last time we did it, they beat the mess out of the Broncos. So obviously, right now, Detroit's the better team. I just think I think it would be the easy pick to say, the Lions are going to win. Obviously, they've been on a roll. They had some hiccups there against Minnesota, but they pulled that one out. And then Dallas, obviously, they lost the last two, so it'd be easy. It's like, of course, you pick Dallas and you excuse me, pick Detroit in this one, beat Dallas. I just don't see Dallas losing a third straight game. My thing is that they're gonna have to they gotta feed CD. Like if they're gonna win this game, I think CD's gonna have to he's gonna have to go for like 150, 175 or something. Attack that Detroit secondary. And obviously Detroit can run the ball, but like my main thing is for them, you can't let Detroit run over you, like, or even think they can run over you. Um, so I reluctantly I am picking Dallas in this one. I think this is kind of I don't want to say a legacy game, but obviously I think at this point they're probably not going to win the division because they still need Philly to lose and some other stuff within these last 2 weeks plus went out. So I don't think it's going to happen, but he still has something to fight for, and regardless of whether they win the division or not, like you do not want to lose three straight games, especially to a team that's you possibly could face in the playoffs in Detroit again anyway. So yeah, the main thing is for me just you can't go into this game and not feed CD the ball, not attack that secondary. And they did well against the run last week. They got to try to repeat that again.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too crazy here about the Lions. I've been pretty high on them all season. However, one thing that is dangerous for them is their secondary. I mean, even in some of these wins, obviously they do great against the Broncos, but I mean, with the Broncos, as great as they had that little streak, if you shut down Cortland Sutton, you kind of shut down the passing game. There wasn't much else going on for the Broncos there. It would then turn into the run game. Um, Nick Mullins obviously had Justin Jefferson, but they came pretty close to winning. If Mullins hadn't turned the ball over 4 times, that would have been a completely different game. But he did throw 4 picks, and they only still lost by 6 in that game. The Lions had a great game, clinched the division for the first time in 30 years. Had to be happy for them there. The Bears didn't do too great against them, and though the Saints did a lot of their work after already being down a lot, the Saints also put up 28. They exploited that secondary. The Packers exploited the secondary and got a win. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The Bears did do pretty good. They beat the Lions in that game in the most recent game, and so I think if the Cowboys can see that, and if they can coach the game here, as Terrence said here, to feed CeeDee Lamb, the Lions are in trouble, and that doesn't mean that they won't keep up. This Cowboys defense is stout, but the Lions offense is pretty much able to score whenever they want to, getting it down to Laporta or St. Brown, and then you can have Montgomery or Gibbs finish off the drive if you need to, or if not, get a bunch of yards on the carry. The Lions are a dangerous team. This game is probably going to be another 30 to 24, 33-28, 35, 30, 31 type of game. Um, I just think that if the Cowboys can see that how exploitable the Lions secondary is, they can send CeeDee Lamb right at them. And with the type of receiver he is, it's just going to be dangerous. And if it gets into a close game scenario, they can exploit that weakness much more than Detroit can exploit many of Dallas's weaknesses. And a lot of Dallas's weaknesses are kind of self-inflicted. Um, so as good of a team as Detroit is, I think that the Cowboys are just a poor matchup for them, which is scary considering the playoff implications. Not to say that there's zero chance that Detroit wins this game. Again, a lot of Dallas's injuries are shortcomings are self-inflicted. If they come out here and they play the wrong kind of game, they turn the ball over, um, they don't lock it in on defense. If they commit too many penalties, that's been a big thing this season. Detroit can easily walk out here with a win. I'm going to say the Cowboys get it though. I think that CeeDee Lamb is posed to have a feast, especially after having 2 weeks of disappointment for the Cowboys. This is just a bad game for the Lions. But as I said, they did lock up their division, so at the very least, there's not a whole lot for them to lose in this. I'm sure they'll keep trying. They have Dan Campbell as the coach. There's no reason for them to give up. But I think the Cowboys will take this one. Moving from there, we have a team that Terrence and I have had some difficulty with throughout the season picking with the Baltimore Ravens. For a little while there, it didn't matter what we did in the Ravens game. The opposite happened. Last week, we were bound to break that when we split on the game. Baltimore got a win under my pick. Sorry, maybe we're on to something now. But we are both going to be taking Baltimore in this one against the Dolphins. Um, I am a born and raised Panthers fan, but I grew up with two cousins. One being a Dolphins fan. The Dolphins Panthers have been sad since 2015, essentially. Not like that year was good, but after that we have been something. And I have tried not to let the Panthers affect my mental health, and thus decided to, not necessarily switch teams, but follow my other older, big bros team. And unfortunately, I cannot pick the Dolphins in this game. The Ravens are the best defense in the NFL. They almost look like they could be one of the best offenses in the NFL. They're just behind the Niners, who they just shut out. There's just not much I can say that goes in the Dolphins' favor here. If the Dolphins can get high streaking and get really quick and get out there and score and score and score and maybe keep up with the Ravens and avoid the kind of suffocating defense, then there's a pathway where they win this game and they could win big. Dolphins are one of those type of teams where it's like, are they going to blow you out? Are they going to escape with a field goal? Or are they going to crumble? The Ravens are just more complete, even without Mark Andrews. We've said that the past few weeks, and I just find it hard to say that the Dolphins will be able to overcome this one, which is going to be huge for that division if the Bills pick up a win, because that just closes in that gap and makes that last game uh, major, which is crazy because this is a 1 p.m. game. Because this one could also have huge implications for just the one seed in general. If the Dolphins come out with the victory, that's going to be massive. They would lock up their division immediately. It would give the Bills no chance, and then they have chances to take the one seed. If the Ravens lose, it also gives chances for the Browns to take the one seed. A lot of stuff going on in this game. Overall, though, I just think that the Ravens' offense is a little more consistent. Not that the Dolphins' offense isn't consistent, but sometimes they can get stalled out a little more because, frankly, Liam Eichenberg at center is prone to horrible mistakes at horrible times, which is what happened against Tennessee a few times in a row and caused some problems. Happened earlier in the season against the Bills as well. Um, Otherwise, though, the defense can be a little flaky. They've been great since Jalen Ramsey came back. They survived a thriller against Dallas. They shut out the Jets. But I mean, the Ravens, man, they shut down San Francisco. They shut down Jacksonville, who's been something recently. Maybe that's not that impressive. The Rams have been hot. They stopped them, stopped the Chargers, stopped the Bengals. Obviously, that was the game where we ended up getting Jake Browning. But I just find it hard to pick against the Ravens in this one. That defense is scary. That offense is equally as scary. Though the Dolphins are a great team and can make this a close one, I think the Ravens will probably edge this one out and lock up the one seed in the AFC.
Yeah, that's what they would like to do because at that point they wouldn't have anything to worry about that last week. Maybe they want to play to because I think they played the Steelers, so maybe they want to play to keep the Steelers from getting a chance to get in. But you'd rather just end it now and be done with it because you lose. Obviously, now you get the possibility of the Dolphins taking it, possibility of the Browns taking it, and you're not playing the Browns that last week. So I think the Ravens are probably even more motivated than this one to just get the number one seed locked up. You can call it a week next week, and you get some time off because now, obviously, with the new playoff rules from the past few years, only the one seed gets the bye. So it's even more important than it had been previously. So yeah, I'd agree here. Not just because I picked wrongly or incorrectly, I should say, picked the wrong team um, in that game on Monday against the Niners, but I just think right now Ravens are the better team. Jalen Waddle, he's going to be out completely for this game, so that's obviously going to be a huge blow there. So they're going to need more from Tyreek Hill, who just came back in that last game after being out the game before. So you got a lot of moving pieces there. Both these teams can run the ball really well. Um, so I expect these teams to try and run the ball well. Um, Again, like I just said in the last segment, Dolphins weren't really able to do it against the Cowboys, and I'm not saying that they're going to be able to do it against the Ravens either. But I would say that their best opportunity here is again to kind of just spread the ball around here because they're going to focus on Tyreek now with Jalen Waddle being out. So try to spread the ball around, run the ball if you can. They do have a better rush defense than the Ravens, but I would say they'd probably run better The Ravens is probably still end up being the better running team in this one, but maybe that kind of balances out there. But yeah, I'd say this one probably gonna be pretty close as well. I'd say it might be even lower scoring to be honest with you, despite how great these offenses are. When you get games like that and you get defenses that are still pretty good, I'd say it'd probably end up probably 34 or 24, I should say 21, something like that. Ravens get the dub, lock out the number one seed. Like you said, if the Bills end up winning their game, now Miami, unfortunately for them, they could drop all the way from 2 to 5 or 6, depending on whatever happens with the Browns, where they end up seed wise. So this is one they want to lock up too, and not even have to worry about the AFC East next week, just playoff positioning. So definitely big game. Again, still upset that it's not on national TV, but it is what it is, and we'll still cover this one next week, no matter what happens.